Hello, everyone. Welcome to the RunwayML class Show and Tell. Our students from our 5-week RunwayML Deep Dive class will be showing their ML art explorations for 10 minutes each. I'm Leah. I'm an artist, educator, and AI researcher based in Seattle. And this class is taught by Derek Schultz and I. Derek is an artist based in New York City. So this was the first class Derek and I taught that was completely focused on RunwayML, which is a program that makes machine learning models really accessible and easy to use. A lot of artists already use Runway. This is an example of a ceramicist who trained a model on her own ceramics and used the AI-generated ceramics as inspiration for her future work. We had 15 students in total, some of which are presenting today and some of which are just tuning in today. And many thanks to Moises for managing today's live stream. This is our schedule. We're going to have 10-minute presentations. In total, this should be about an hour and a half long. And this is meant to be an end of class celebration and sharing of knowledge. So without further ado, we'll start off with Moises, who's going to show a video presentation of his work.
My name is Moises Sanabria, and I am an artist passionate in the intersection of contemporary art, branding, math, and technology. For me, creating physical sculptures through a conceptual framework is one of my greatest inspirations for making work. I draw a lot of influence from artists working with math and technology, such as Sol LeWitt and Nam June Paik. For my show and tell project, I was really interested in creating a machine learning model that was trained on images of objects inside of galleries and museums. My curiosity was to teach the model to generate images of sculptures inside a white cube aesthetic that could physically exist in the future, as envisioned by the neural network. Gathering my data set was a long curated process that I have now learned it is an art form all on its own. In a way, although my data varied greatly in textures, sizes, and shapes, there is a constant feature tying my data: the white cube, a place of free context with its even walls and its unobtrusive artificial lighting. My intention was to train the model to learn how to place objects next to these walls and on the floor, to place generative objects in the exhibition space, where they are framed as works of art. Once my data set was ready, setting up the pipeline to train the model in Runway was a total pleasure. I was able to select the available StyleGAN 2 network architecture and start the network from a pre-trained faces model that will make training much faster. Here's an example representation of a neural network during its training phase. This visual example helps me think about the process through which the model learns from the pixels in the dataset to create the proper weights for the generator network to produce results. During my first 3,000 training steps, I was able to visually measure the progress of the generator network and see how my new model transformed the pre-trained faces model. I was excited and a bit nervous, and then I saw higher resolution results. Here is a curated collection. I felt the results were heading in the right direction. So I continued training, this time using my new pre-trained sculpture model. I decided to train for twice the amount, an additional 7,000 training steps, and the results show further worth for me. The objects that it created had these metallic, rustic textures with a dose of nature qualities that I wanted to keep exploring. Once again, I decided to train the model one final round on top of my latest pre-trained Sculpture 2 model. Being new to GAN training, I learned in this class about the subtle details that a GAN model can learn at later stages in training. Here are my latest results after a grand total of 15,000 steps. I want to thank Derek and Leah and the students in our machine learning course, as well as the RunwayML community, for the support and the opportunity to learn and grow in this field. Thank you for everyone watching and tuning in to our show and tell. If you have any questions, feel free to reach me after the live stream. Enjoy the rest of the amazing projects.
culture. I have a deep curiosity about our behavior through social media. For my project, I used 1,075 selfies that I scrapped through Instagram, and I asked my friends to send me all the selfies they wanted me to use for my project. But why selfies? I think we are the protagonists in our accounts, and we become performance every time we wear a filter. I wanted to see the result of combining all these faces, all these textures and colors. I used Runway to combine Instagram users with filters so we can see all these generated identities, internet humans.
Everyone. I came into this class knowing next to nothing about machine learning. Thanks to Derek and Leah, I know a little bit more than next to nothing now. But based on the work, it looks like I know a shit ton. So that's kind of cool. Makes me look way more smart than I am. So my work during the day, I'm a product designer. So I work with type a lot to create harmony and communicate meaning and try to facilitate action. In my artwork, I kind of go the opposite direction. I use type as a starting point to really abstract and like deconstruct and just get weird. So that's what attracted me to learning about this stuff so I could mess the type. So I have 3 examples of stuff I was able to do in this class that I thought was pretty cool. So the first dabbling was with style transfer. So these were my inputs, just some scans of some typography, and then some generated images, I think from the big bike, not right? So I used my previous work as like starting points, fed it into Runway, and generated a whole set of these really like abstract looking things. And then experimented with overlaying the style transfers onto the type here, which resulted in this kind of trippy looking. It looks like, to me, it reminds me of like a 60s or 70s like psychedelic vibe. It was pretty fun. So yeah, I learned that I liked the more abstract kind of like things that had like a bit of nature tinge to it would kind of play well with the characters of the types and get weird. So that was a good like first dip of my toes into the ML pool. So next was to I had a couple data sets that I had compiled over the year. One was just a bunch of photos of type from New York City. So this looked like this. So a bunch of storefronts, like, it was really a varied data set. So I had no idea what I was going to get, like feeding all this into the machine. But what it ended up looking like was this kind of trippy effect. So you definitely see the machine, the AI, trying its best to replicate storefronts, trying its best to replicate type and language. What's weird is that like it kind of looks like a binary, like ones and zeros. So it's like the computer is almost like creating its computer storefronts of New York, and trying to create forms here. So this is pretty weird. I didn't know what to do with this, so this experiment stopped right here. My final experiment was with another data set of just scans of types. Again, like over the years, just anytime I see like a sign or something that usually like it looks, I get attracted to something that looks a little bit distorted or messed up. And so by feeding not just like pristine images of type into a model, like all these have a bit of noise attached to it, and like the characters aren't perfectly represented, and sometimes they're cut off, sometimes they're cropped. So it produced this work, which like in and of itself, like I feel like this is like super interesting. Like the shapes it produces, like I don't know if anyone looking at this would know that it originated from type, but you can, when you see the input data set, you can kind of see, that like there's an M, little abstract M there. There's some, there's definitely a lot of like, O's and circles and little F there and some B's. So I thought this was cool on its own, but I was like curious to see what it looked like taking this and like overlaying it on top of the input set, which produced work like this, which I think is like really starts to get interesting and starts to kind of go towards some of the work that I create, outside of this class of machine learning, where you can kind of see bits and pieces of characters, typographic characters, which come loaded with meaning, but yet there's so abstracted and deconstructed that the meaning is unclear, which I think is interesting. So yeah, this was where I ended after 5 weeks, and it looks like I actually know a thing or two, but the truth is I still know next to nothing. But maybe after another class with Derek and Lee, I'll know a bit more. So I had a blast. Highly recommend this. Anyone who wants to just like learn some stuff and mess around. So yeah, that's my section. Thanks a lot.
Hey Jason, we have a quick question from the audience, which is how many images did you train on for both of your style GAN models?
Both of those were about 500, like the minimum. It took me days of cropping, scaling and cropping just to get to the minimum. So I didn't go, again, like underachiever here. Didn't want to go much past the minimum of 500.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool. All right, so I took this class week 1. I was just playing around with Runway and just exploring what kind of models they had. And one simple one that seemed like it'd be a lot of fun is called De-Oldify. And it was a model that was trained on basically like black and white, or they took color photography and then taught it like a black and white version. And so essentially like it could basically colorize black and white photos. I was pretty excited after the first class and asked my boss, who I knew had a huge collection of home or family photos that he had scanned, and they're extremely high resolution. And so I ran it through, and like I was actually really happy with the results. And this all took like less than a minute to do, which was just like mind-boggling to me. But I was pretty excited to just like get my hands using machine learning, and I think Runway made that super easy. Let's see here. Ooh, I don't know if anyone else is seeing this glitch across the screen, but maybe it's just mine. But in either case, so the first project I had into training my first model was I had to figure out like what kind of data set I needed. And the only thing that I had freely available was a bunch of product screenshots that I had from work. And I knew I had hundreds of them. So I decided to feed it into here. And the results were extremely disappointing. Like I didn't know what I was planning to get out of it. But yeah, it resulted in nothing particularly interesting in my mind. And it certainly wasn't worthwhile for me to continue training. And if I were to do it again, I'd probably clean up the data set. But I think it gave me an early idea of what kind of data set I wanted to pick. Which led me to this one. So this was a model that I was super excited about the results. When I reached out to Derek about how to review the data set that I was looking at, we weren't certain what was going to come out. It could have been, I think I was expecting hot garbage, but was pleasantly surprised. I think it managed to capture a lot of composition extremely well. And in my opinion, it looks nothing like the source material, which I'll also share it. So this was the source material. It was just basically 2,100 images, 3D renders that I taught the machine, and it trained with this thing. So that was surprising and fun. I decided to continue to explore more of what kind of data sets I could find oh, here are some nice examples that I pulled out that I particularly like and find inspiring. But the diversity is just like really intense. So my next project, I fed it images of nudibranchs, which is a sea slug that I had admired in the past. This ended up being an interesting project because some of the renders actually looked fairly real and actually tricked a few folks, which made me now think whether or not I had some weird responsibility to label them as fake. But I think after further thinking about it, it's better to go for not realistic looking things, although it's fun that I was able to do this. This is my latest one that I literally trained this morning. So I took a bunch of line art from a couple artists that I like, and I thought they were very similar. And I actually want to see, like, I'm trying to understand how the machine learns to see. And so normally when you train on StyleGAN 2, the one that suggested is to train on faces. So all my previous ones were trained on pictures of faces. But here I want to see the difference between what would happen if I had one that was trained on faces and one that was trained on the 3D renders that I'd previously showed you. And I actually really like the results of I mean, it's probably hard to tell the difference, but like just going through all the image options, I can actually tell how the one on the right is actually trained on the 3D model set. And I feel like it actually renders like a far more interesting composition. So this is just a breakdown of how what is actually happening here. So I had the 3D renders turn into a different 3D render model looking thing that renders a bunch of images, and then I fed it a bunch of line art, and then it resulted in the thing on the right, which I'm kind of excited about and might want to continue training. Ooh, can people see this? Is there a glitch on my screen? Yeah, there's a huge glitch on my screen. Okay, cool. Let's just pretend that it's not there. That's not there. So I didn't add in those glitchy things, which kind of look cool, but not what I was expecting. But yeah, so I took the outputs and was just quickly playing around with like what I could do with it. But so the one on the left is just basically just some really quick photoshopping. You can't even see it because of the glitch. But the one on the right is interesting because this is also painted by another form of AI. There's an application called Clip Art Studios that usually is used for comic book artists, and one of the features they have is just like colorize it. Like it'll just guess and just start plotting in color. And so I threw it in there and decided just to see what would happen, and the results are interesting. So my end goal with taking this class was to like generate monsters, and I feel like I'm getting there. But yeah, that's pretty much my projects on from this class, and I'm really excited about it.
Cool. Hey, my name is Soeterman. I'm an artist and designer. I work with physical spaces, installations, street art, performance, a lot of non-computer things. But I do a lot of travel sketching as a hobby. It's a habit left over from architecture school. I do a lot of on-location sketching as a way of like recording the places I've been and also how I felt at the time. It's like a very personal and meditative practice. So when I go through my sketchbooks again, it's like a little safe points where I like can kind of recall where I was and how I felt. And it's important for me that they're not drawn from photos because then I remember how I felt looking at the photo instead of at the place. It's also like one of the clearest ways of connecting what I see with my eyes to what I make with my hands. And so I have like dozens of sketchbooks from the past 8 or 10 years or so. So my goal for this project was to take drawings of places I've been to generate drawings of places I haven't been or drawings of places I could never go to. So these imaginary places, a record of imaginary places. Unfortunately, PassMe did not optimize for creating a data set. My style changes depending on how much time I take, like sketches take from like 3 minutes to up to an hour. What tools I have on hand, it's evolved a lot over time. I have like different pens, pencils, watercolor, all over the place. So in this first version, these are photos scraped from my Instagram and also dug out of my Dropbox archives. I cropped the photos to show location in the top third and the sketchbook in the bottom 2/3 of the frame. So as you can see, let me use the pointer. Sometimes the content of the sketch, I try to align it with the subject itself. And unfortunately, though, with all of that processing, it only left me with about 400 images, including the mirroring. And so I trained it for 5,000 steps. But this is the first round with landscapes. I like how the background photo image kind of does correlate with the generated landscape. This landscape over here is probably my favorite. It's like some sort of building rising out of the sea. And the middle one over here kind of looks like the river at sunset on a really hot day. So these are more of them. Buildings, perhaps. It does look like it's trying to draw a building. Again, I like how some of these did pick up on the same geometry that's in the sketch in the front is actually reflected in the space in the back. Cool. So I did another version. This is landscape crop. The data set's mostly the same as the previous set. It's more buildings and it's a little more architectural because I could use photos that didn't fit with the whole 1/3, 2/3 requirement. I also took out some of the watercolor landscapes. Again, it's around 400 photos, 5,000 steps. So these are some of the buildings that it generated, and I'm impressed they actually do look like buildings. We have this like Lord of the Rings style cathedral. I think this is like some gate over here, this like forest tree situation. These are ones that don't really look like buildings, a little more landscape here. This is definitely like a landscape over here. This one's some sort of bridge, apartment building. I really don't know where that one came from, but I really like it. So the part 2 for all of this, switching to drawing in real life. So getting off the screen, here's one of the generated images that I really liked. It looks like a bridge. It actually looks like something I think I would have drawn. So I played with Live Trace and Illustrator, and then I modified my Silhouette Cameo vinyl cutter to hold different pens. They actually do sell a pen holder, but I didn't have time for that, so it's tape and hair ties. Turns out it actually worked really well and fairly consistently. So this is the first round. This is the first one using a black pen over here. And then I actually put it through the pens and the processes I would while drawing. So this one is just purely in black pen. This one is black pen. Underneath it is black pen first round, and then the second round is a gray brush pen. The one on the top right over here is just a brush pen. And then this one over here is first round is with an ink brush, and the second one was a water brush afterwards. Okay, cool. Yeah, and each of these took maybe like 10 minutes or so to set up, and then only 2 to 4 minutes to draw, which is way faster than I can. But, you know, oops. Of course, it's different than how I actually draw, but, you know, we're getting there. And that's not exactly the point, right? So kind of what I'm thinking about next is I do want to use a pen plotter to create more of these, and also in watercolor. And actually have a bound book that you can flip through side by side next to my actual sketchbook, and sort of like comparing them as both as artifacts, and just, you know, like what would it mean to have this like physical representation. And the thing is, though, like sketching is my way of remembering, and it's really like journaling. And I'm making a lot of choices when I'm sitting in a 3D space, like angle, light. I'm choosing what I want to keep or omit, or even like if I even just feel like drawing at the time. But also I can like point out when I go through all of these drawings, I can point out like when I did a sketch after like a major rejection, or when I was like excited but jet lagged, or like extremely happy, or even one I can tell you that was like after a breakup, so I could just like calm myself down. And I think it does show in the work, at least in my eyes. And there are all these little human errors and mistakes, and like I spilled stuff, and like, but they're all like very uniquely mine, and again part of the moment and the time and how I was feeling, and even how I was feeling in my body. And some days I just don't want to draw because I don't feel like it, right? And like even like these two drawings over here, they're done in the same location but a year apart, so they're very different from, again, all those factors. And part of what I'm trying to record is a story, and that's why I draw in the first place, to remember these little stories and these little snapshots. So it's weird, kind of weird for me to look at these and like I can enjoy them aesthetically and they kind of look like my work. And if I placed enough of them in front of you, maybe you personally wouldn't know the difference. But right now it's this weird where like I don't always feel like drawing, but I can just like press a button and generate hundreds more of them. And like the latent space video looks pretty cool for this, but I don't want to show you because you would never actually see my drawings like that because again, it's a snapshot, it's a static snapshot. But if you're familiar, it's like kind of like that movie Memento, where the main character sees a note in his own handwriting and he doesn't remember how it got there. And I'm like seeing pages from like a journal I would never wrote or like a drawing set in a place I've never been to. And I'm not sure what the story is here yet. Anyway, thank you. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat.
Hi, I'm Naoko. I am a Japanese artist, graphic designer, and motion graphics animator based in New York City. So I would like to talk through the process of how I got to my final project. So when I first started this class, again, I also knew close to nothing about machine learning. And the only thing I knew was, certain artists, but I've never done anything myself. And quickly I learned that, So I quickly learned that you need a large set of data to make a model. So I went through my own work and I do a lot of practical work outside of my day job. So I found a large set of videos and stills that I shot over the course of the past couple of years. So decided to crop in, and this was the input. Had around 700 to 800 photos, and I trained the model for 5,000 steps, and the output, the model output was fairly similar to what I put in, mostly I think because a lot of cropping was, they're similar and it's abstract, but I did like the fact that now I had this model that generated my own work, or that looked kind of like my own work. So from there, I decided I know it's kind of a big jump, but I was thinking about what to do next. And I wanted to somehow morph it or do like a mixed model training with the model that I just made. So I decided to collect, I think it was 1,160 images of lamp designs from 20th century. And they're mostly Italian designs, some Japanese, but this is part of the input that I collected. And then I ended up training it for 16,500 steps in total. And as you can see, so in step 1,500, you really see the morph of the lamp and the liquidy images that you saw in the previous model. And around 5,000, it starts to look more lamp-like, and then obviously at 16,500, they look like fairly like sellable models or lamps at this point. And I really like the first 1,500 step mostly because it's really a good mix of my own work and the lamps that I collected. But for this purpose, I decided to use the final step, the 16,500, and I made a lamp, a style GAN, and it's not a working website yet, but it is a web page where it communicate with your runway that is running on your own computer. And it will, sorry, it's starting up right now. So you can click on anywhere, you click anywhere on the canvas and you type something like runway, then it will generate an image from your runway model. And it's, if you capitalize it, you get a different image. But then if you type it again, you know, it'll, the same word, if you type it the exact same way, then it will generate the exact same image. So I thought it was, you know, this was an experiment. I don't really know coding that well, but, you know, it was, I thought it was a fun way to put what I learned into one big final project. So, you know, thanks to Derek, thanks to Leah for all the help. Oops, sorry. Yeah, all the help. I like really knew nothing when I started, so this was such a great learning experience, and I'm excited to just see where I can go with the knowledge I have now.
Naoko, type in some more words. We want to see it generate more lamps.
Oh, yes. I mean, I don't know what should I type. Okay, I can type my own name. Hold on. Oh wait, maybe the same. Oh, and then yeah, I read spaces. I don't know April's last name. I'm going through people's names right now. And if you change the truncation and like some number settings in the code, then it will generate completely different models too. So like Slack, or it has a capital, then Slack. So like that would be a pretty cool and weird map in real life. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So hello, my name's Jesse. I'm going to be doing talking over a video, but first just to introduce myself. I'm a software developer living in the Bay Area, and I'm mostly wanting to explore latent spaces in things like GANs as a way to say, like, maybe what would an interactive exploration be like? Like, can we make a game where you're exploring it, or there was a presentation a few years ago, or an art project where they used leap motion to explore a big GAN, and that really sparked interest in really like what can we do to explore these? Can we take spaces that we already know and create new spaces that we can then explore and build our own little like GAN fic out of it. So now let's try to start the video, and I'll talk along with it. So I wanted to get a feel of how to create interesting linked spaces, exploring the boundary of data sets and resulting imagery. The first project that I had was scraping frames from Mario 64 and clicking train on RunwayML. A few hours later, and a few dollars poorer, I realized the importance of curation. Again, tried to recreate green text, the scroll effects, and other things like that. So I started to remove, yeah, I'm not getting video either. I thought it was just me trying to. I have a copy of it here. I could try to share here if that helps.
The stream is getting video, so unfortunately you can't see it, so a little tricky.
Okay. Well, I removed unwanted frames and I resumed training. Important lesson, just like parenting a child, don't show the GAN anything you don't want to learn. There was reddish Mario-ish blobs. The data set had huge Mario all over the place with lots of different orientations, variations of the background. so I thought about simplifying the drawing style to maybe like have the GAN not have to learn as much. So I looked at a cartoon. This was a Family Guy clip, and in this case, I made sure that the main character was always in front. It looked interesting enough. I wasn't. It was solid progress, but I wasn't interested in the subject matter, so I switched to a video by Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, and then started clipping and finding images where he is in the center and well lit, and trained for many, many, many more steps than I'd ever done before. So what is showing right now? So that way I know how far I'm ahead or behind.
Why don't we just, we can just, Moises, if you want to play the Childish Gambino video and let, yeah.
Humanist shapes produced were very similar to the shapes in the cartoon. So I thought maybe I needed to try a different approach. So I thought about constraining the background. And so I found a data set, in this case, a video, Her Morning Elegance, that was on a fixed backdrop. And I removed all the frames where it didn't have just the white bed and the person and the people on it. And after about 10,000 steps, you know, the shapes were kind of humanoid, but it still felt lacking. And so after 10,000 steps, I decided to try again, this time enlisting the help of my daughters. By capturing videos of their characters touring their islands on Animal Crossing, always facing the camera. This time, rather than the backdrop being consistent, we had the foreground being consistent, the character, and the backdrop was always changing. And so we moved around and then trained based on that.
You were the shadow to my light. Did you feel us? Another star, you fade away. Afraid our aim is out of sight. Wanna see us alive. Where are you now? Where are you now? Where are you now? Was it all in my fantasy? Where are you now?
So it seems like of all the different experiments I did, the use case of trying to make a navigable latent space by starting with a training data set where the person that you're potentially wanting to navigate it was in the center worked the best. And so minimizing that variation, and then next steps for me are really looking at more variation. Like my daughter's island has a theme, so it was very much a certain type of visualization occurring, as well as exploring other ways of interacting with it. Like, is there a way to actually make it so you could have a controller where you're navigating through the space and make that part of maybe an interactive feature of exploring it. Another Jesse on Twitter. If you have ideas or thoughts about how to explore GANs in a fun way or an interesting way, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Mercedes. I'm based in Uruguay. I'm Uruguayan as well. I'm going to share with you everything, or mostly everything, that I've been up to during this wonderful class. It's a Notion page, and it's going to be available for everybody. So you are going to be able to deep dive in anything that you're interested in. So first thing, I did a bunch of tests, mainly using skeleton pictures or pictures or drawings, which I was very interested in. and did a couple of tests varying the image size, which gives a bunch of very different results and playing with how dense in pixels they were. So that was pretty cool. And then the first week of test 2, I gave it a try to style transfer. So usually results are not as crazy or fun, or they just look like an old filter. But I was very rigorous in test and tried different type of images. So I tried cartoons, persons, roller derby stuff, sports, more static buildings. And then I did some processing images and tested over that. And if you see on the corners here, I noticed the algorithm was very sensitive in terms of shading and black and white. So what you see on the board today is because there was a white frame on it. So I grabbed a couple of images from an exhibit I did 2 years ago, which was mainly black and white and like 3D canvases with weird and mathematical shapes. And quite interesting results came out, such as this one. This one's my favorite. So this is with waterfall. This one's not as interesting, but I don't know. I think it's pretty cool how sensitive it is regarding shaded and with a almost black and white image with different shades on it. Good. So next, my first videos with PJ5. So this was what I think was cool is that I use a JSON file from another training. So I think it's cool the fact that you can mix and match and import JSON files that are from another model and see what you get. I have a huge database with information of daily stuff I do or daily things I wear or whatever. So that can be an input when for a result of a training. First data set was kind of a fail. I trained my algorithm on shoes. I narrowed down my search to pumps. So pumps are that kind of shoes, apparently you call them like that, and I kind of over restricted it, so the result wasn't very interesting. I retrained that over different kinds of shoes and so, but yeah, it still wasn't very interesting. And I did another training on anatomy stuff. So I was very difficult to gather the images and get to 500. So I did some tricks such as rotating stuff. I was quite lucky because most images worked. So this is the only scenario in which, surgery image won't work because it's too symmetrical in 2 axes. But most of them were pretty rotatable. So I did that training and so it's still training yet, but I did take a couple of snips for you to see. So it's pretty scary to see how at the beginning people look like zombies. Let me see if I can get a snip of that. So it goes really fast. Seeing you two at the same time. Do you see zombie-like people? Okay, I see. Yes, cool. And then, so this is a 3,000 step training, and I use 500 images. Kind of cheated on that because I had 350, so I rotated some of them and tweaked them. But I think it's pretty cool, the idea of playing with something that for some people have a very specific technique. I was not raised, I wouldn't say raised, but I grew up with a lot of this surgery and stuff at home. So I'm pretty used to it. And the image I will show in a minute can make some of you dizzy. Don't watch if you, but I find it's really interesting the results that I'm getting so far, because it really looks like a surgery like drawing or explanation or educational book. 100% definitely the texture, the difference. So this one, so if you see here, let me draw. So this one here in particular, so this was a snip of the training, and how it gets here. It's kind of the wall of some internal organ. It's very precise, and it hasn't been trained as much yet. So I don't know, I'm pretty seduced and fascinated by how something that has a clear meaning for, I don't know, doctors or whatever can be replicated in very similar images that do not have meaning at all, but still look very technical and anatomical in some way. So next steps, so these are real surgery images. I'm not showing that. So next steps, what we'll be working on is doing a like a real-time post tracker or something like that. So I've been taking a look at a couple of links. So if you watchers are related with any of these, I will bother you. But yeah, just a real-time post tracker or something like that, and see if I can connect, I don't know, whether tracking bones on your hand or maybe internal organs. See a question popping out there. Or where do I see in the chat? I don't, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, just maybe internal organs, or adding an extra finger, or yeah, just playing with our perception of our own images and playing with what's inside. And I don't know, that's the plan for that. Yeah, I'm very excited about the course. Derek and Leah are awesome. If you're planning on taking it, you should not doubt it at all. And I don't know, and thanks Leah and Derek and everybody who presented on the course and who attended on the course. Was a very nice group.
Hi everyone, my name is Nye and I am an animator in Southern California. I'm going to be showing 3 things tonight. Well, first of all, let me say thanks. I want to say thank you to both Derek and Leah. I thought the class was great. I had a really great time. So I'm going to show 3 things tonight that I think were particularly interesting to me and my work. I'm going to show Ride the Train, the Shatner GAN, and put a GAN on it. And then I'll talk a little bit about what I'm going to be doing next steps. So the first one is Ride the Train, which is about semantic image synthesis using COCO. And you can see these are images that are generated out of the COCO model in Runway. It's sort of putting these realistic objects to the segmentation that I created. So you can see that I sort of faked the segmentation up at the top. That's a combination of both Maya and After Effects. So I modeled something very simple in Maya, and then I put some shaded Lamberts, and then I did some After Effects stuff with a particle system, and then I sped it all through Runway. And what I find really interesting about that is that I find interesting that you can segment an area and you can say there, make that a thing. And I want to find more information about that and dig about that a little bit. And I'll probably be playing with libraries that allow me to do that. So like First Order, I know also has opportunities to get more segmented in it, and so that's part of it. So next thing I'm going to show you is GAN. This is Shatner GAN, and I made a number of GANs, but this was by far, I think, the most successful. I started off by just taking some basic clips from YouTube, and you can see the smush on the right didn't really work. So then I found this like jackpot of information. This guy basically edited 80 minutes worth of Captain Kirk shots from the original series. So I scraped that, and then I wound up throwing out like Uhura and Spock and various other things that were in, and just basically cleaned the data set up. And then I trained almost 15,000 images of Captain Kirk here. And I thought it came out pretty good. If you look at what the final output is, just a second, the images that came out of StyleGAN 2, I think are pretty good. So this sort of leads, yeah, there it is right there. So you can see these images there. So it kind of leads me to believe that you could segment something, you know, a cube or whatever, then say this is a dog, and then train Captain Kirk or a dog Gan or whatever, and have it. And so these are the two pieces that I really want to continue working with. The last one was sort of pure fun. I just was putting the screws to Runway basically, and so this is an ad again for saying all the single ladies, and it harkens back. So you can see what I did here is I took all the models I could. I ran this video through Runway and took out Open Path and took out Dense Pose, and the data in front is JSON from the PoseNet, and I just kind of threw it all in After Effects. And then I made a ring by scraping Pinterest, this ring GAN, and was also at the same time sort of prototyping the first order stuff. So it all kind of converged on this After Effects project, and I wound up doing a whole bunch of things concurrently and trying things out and throwing different models in, having a lot of fun puppeting stuff, as you can see here. But I'll leave it for the face. But what kind of happened at the end, and I'll show you, is that I built the entire project here, and you can see the after effects of the problem. And since I was attacking different things like the face thing and then the GAN and the whatever, I would like work sort of concurrently, and then I would send some things up to the server, and then I would wait for things to be rendered. And it was the first time I was kind of weaving my machine learning processes into my After Effects-y animation processes. So I thought that was really interesting. So what's next? What are my next steps? So after doing the Shatner GAN, I'm interested in doing a Yang GAN. I'm a big believer in universal basic income, so this is my boy, kind of. Anyways, I think that what I'm doing here is I'm learning how to edit massive amounts of information. I have a lot of Andrew Yang interviews that I'm trying to line up in this template that I have above. And then I'm exporting the frames, and then I'm running them through this sort of recipe that extracts him out of his background and then changes his color palette, and then, you know, does different sort of things to the output. Another thing that I'm interested in is also going back to trying to see if I could do sort of more face puppeting. So I was trying first order to change the content that was coming out of Humphrey Bogart's mouth. I don't think this is quite successful. So I'm actually going to try to move out of Runway and into first order itself and see if I can, you know, use the Python command line based stuff to get something better out of it. So that's basically it. So if anybody has any questions or anything they want to say, please absolutely reach out. I go under the Nitrogen project. It's where I'm going to be basically focusing about machine learning and how this works in terms of filmmaking. So I'll be doing a lot of sort of face stuff and compositing and trying out semantic images and things like that. You can go to nitrogen.ai. The site's not up yet, but there will be one eventually, or you can follow me on Twitter if you want. But by all means, please just reach out and say hi on Slack. And I just want to say thanks again, and I hope everybody is staying safe.
I don't know if Moises is going to show off the stream or not, but I want to also quickly just give a shout out to the class and everyone presenting. So for those of you in the stream who aren't familiar, like, you know, we this is all done in 5 weeks. So we throw a lot at all the students, and I'm really excited to see how everyone picks up and works and everything. So it's really exciting to see just all the work that's already been produced, and I'm really excited to sort of see where it goes from here. So I also want to say that if you're interested in learning more of this, Leah and I are offering more classes this summer. You can find out through either of our Twitter channels. There's also a list of links at the bottom of this video. So if you want to follow us, you can also sign up for my newsletter and other places. So hopefully if this inspired you to maybe like learn a little bit of this stuff, you'll join one of our classes soon. And if there are other questions, so basically what's going to happen is this video is going to stay up. Leah, I know, has taken great notes. So we're going to make sure we get credits for everybody in the notes in the description for the video. So if you missed anything and you want to come back, or you want to find these artists on their social media profiles, or just talk to them about their work, we'll make sure we add all their contact information here. So, and lastly, we do have a Slack channel. So if you want to join our Slack channel. You can always talk to people directly there, or ask questions, or share your own work there as well. So it's been really fun. It's been great to see everybody's work. I'm really excited to see where everyone is in another 5 weeks, or maybe in 6 months. Yeah, so it's been really great to see everyone's work. So if there are questions, we'll hang out for 5 or 10 minutes in case there are questions from the chat. Otherwise, it's been a really great day, really great 6 or 7 weeks of class, and I'm really excited to see what everyone else does afterward. So thank you, everybody, for all your hard work. I know it was not always the easiest, but I really appreciate just how deep into the work and how everyone approached it with their own point of view, which is my favorite part of seeing everyone's work. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm all really very proud of all of you and all the like how much you were able to make and all the like very, very creative applications that you came up with us just showing you this tool. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what you guys make next.
Yeah, thanks everybody. This has been great. I don't see any new questions from the chat channel, but I'd be interested if people are thinking about it a little bit more. I can tee one up, which is just, what did everyone find to be the most surprising part of this work? Whether it was what was the hardest, what was the easiest, what were you most surprised by?
I think I was surprised by how dumb it was. Like I had anticipation. I don't know. I'd been following machine learning and that kind of thing for a little while, like just kind of on the sidelines. And like I was really excited about this, and like I had expectations of like what it could output. But it like now that I actually fully understand, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Why I didn't understand that at all. But yeah, it definitely took a little while. Like I feel like I'm still like all I'm doing right now is like studying and learning how the machine learns, and that's exciting for me, because like yeah, it wasn't just like yeah, I loaded up with a bunch of stuff and it just magically outputs things. Like that's what I was clearly had no idea. But I think just in taking this class, I've expanded a lot more understanding of machine learning even outside of images.
Because it's also like I'm working towards something, so I'm being productive, right? But it's just like, just podcast on or something, just like crop and crop and crop, and there's like hundreds of them, and you can just keep on going. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, to actually riff off that, like I have 2 kids, and this is an awesome, like curating a data set is like a really great thing to like get through watching like some children's show for like the umpteenth time, because you're just like, I'm like, I could do this. This is awesome.
I need kids or Derek's patience to edit pictures one by one. At one point there were like little arrows indicating what was what, like this is a lung, this is a blah, this is a blah, and I just kept them to see, first test or just like notes on the side.
Yeah, it's totally true. I think data sets, so when I actually first taught the first version of this class, I didn't really cover data sets at all. And immediately the second version was mostly about data sets. So yeah, it's, it is the hardest part of this class, I would say, or the most time consuming part of this class. And I think we didn't even like give you an extra week to like learn it. You guys had to do that like as a part of other stuff. So I'm really, really impressed by the fact that everyone was able to find a data set that they wanted to work with and like play with it. That is not an easy feat for sure. Most machine learning artists I know are working off of data sets that already exist. So seeing everyone generate their own data set was pretty amazing. One last question before I let everyone go, because I know it's been a long day of people demoing stuff and pushing to the last minute to get their projects up. If we had 2 more weeks in the class, or if you could do this class again, what would you want to learn in the next version?
I feel like some of the stuff around PoseNet and things like that, and I loved the going deep on StyleGAN, and I'm wondering how much richer the non-StyleGAN stuff can be. And maybe it's that I should have done more, but it felt not as strong as the rest. Like StyleGAN and Runway feels stronger than the rest of the thing. Like, yes, they have chaining, yes, they have these other things, but Nye's thing really, like that was awesome seeing all that put together. And I'm wondering like how much of that was he able to do in Runway versus having to put that together with his own tools.
Talk to that if you want. Yeah, I mean, like I already had a pre-existing After Effects pipeline, and then it was really a matter of like creating the folders and filling the folders of content that came out of Runway. And there were some things that I had to like slam my nose into. For example, like puppeting, the first order puppeting, I had to have like input videos, and then I had a folder for the output. So I think that's just sort of a workflow thing. And I don't think Runway is at all designed to do that yet, but I'm hopeful that they will start to be a little bit more integrated into things like After Effects, especially since they're starting to poke into Photoshop and Unity and things like that.
I would like to learn PostNet, but for me, the learning curve was so steep that I mean, if you had asked that question at the beginning of the class, I would have no clue. But then just having the chance to explore a little bit, I personally explore many different options, and that gave me a more clear idea of at least what I wanted to go deep into. So just like having like a step back before the 2 more weeks.
Yeah, I'm glad that I think most people's final projects were StyleGAN based, and that's partly just because the last couple weeks we spend are really around StyleGAN, and because you can train your own models, it tends to be what people focus on. But there are, there's a rich library of other models available within Runway, and a lot of them you just can't train yourself. So sometimes you're stuck dealing with what already exists in the model repo. But I do think there's a lot of other things to work with, and PoseNet is definitely something I think would be fun to play with more. Especially we'll need to figure out other cameras since we need to get like full body poses. So maybe when the webcam market goes down a little bit more in terms of prices, we can buy webcams for everybody, and then we can do some like fun dance routines, that sort of thing. So yeah, and I think the Runway folks are always adding new models, so I think we'll also find other things to play with and see what we can do there. I actually just added a model today, which I'll share in the Slack channel. So if anyone wants to play with it, it takes your pictures of your face and generates flowers from them. So I'll share that in the Runway channel if anyone is interested. But yeah, there was a question here from Mercedes, which is how many iterations or steps did you use to train those weird organs?
3,000 steps. That was the first one, and it just came out as we were speaking. Cool. So the video is on Notion.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll make sure that everyone's links to projects and stuff gets added to the YouTube video as well. So we'll make sure all that gets added. Cool. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been really, really great to see, and I hope all of you stay making work. I'd love to see more stuff, and as I've told most of you individually through one-on-ones, like please feel free to share or DM me or ask questions of either the channel or me and Leah in Slack. We would love to help and see everyone continue to grow, and I hope to see some of you in future classes. Leah and I are trying to figure out what to do for the next couple months of new courses. So we'll definitely let you know about what we're going to have upcoming soon. So thanks, everybody. And thanks everybody for everybody in the chat. It was really great to see everyone's positivity there. So thank you for checking out these artists. Please try to follow them on social and find their work, especially if you really like some of their stuff. And hopefully we'll see you in Slack to talk about machine learning art in the future. So thanks again, everybody. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.